Now, Chris, next in our AI roadkill world tour, I wanted to talk to you about Windsurf and the on again, off again acquisitions and finally being pulled apart for spare parts. Now, Windsurf, for those of you who have not heard of it, is one of the leading AI driven coding tools alongside Cursor and a couple of others. And as recently as a month or two ago, I think, it was announced they would be acquired by OpenAI for $3 billion, one of the first big acquisitions in the AI space. It's a fantastic tool. But then some interesting things started happening. Because of the acquisition, Anthropic, whose Claude models are considered the best for coding, started cutting off access to Windsurf, resulting in an exodus of users. There was also a whole lot of backroom concern between OpenAI and Microsoft. Ultimately, the deal got pulled. Then, just last week, Google announced that they were not acquiring Windsurf, but that they were going to basically pick up the CEO and a bunch of their best researchers in another incredibly expensive acqui-hire. And in order to make the investors whole, of course, they would provide a licensing fee to Windsurf in order to be able to use all of their technology. But they left a lot of employees behind who were very angry. And then just yesterday, Chris, it was announced that the company behind Devon, the AI coding agent that made a splash last year, was going to pick up the rest of Windsurf, the scraps, I suppose, the employees who were left over and some of their technology. So it's just a fascinating story and just shows the really brutal nature of competition in the AI world at the moment, where a company can be riding high one day and basically just picked apart for acqui-hire and little bits of technology just a week later. So what do you think of this one?
I think calling these transactions, and there have been many of them, right? The character AI transaction, the scale AI transaction, now this Windsurf transaction. I wouldn't call them acqui-hires. I'd call them acqui-raids. I would call them
Yeah.
strip mining companies for talent. And I have really mixed feelings about this. On one hand, I'm, very much like let these companies cook. I've been a bit skeptical about antitrust laws, and I've been, optimistic about the tech companies to some degree. I just feel like this is pretty shady. If you're an operator in these companies, you have equity in these companies. You're betting on the Silicon Valley dream to participate in the upside. And what's happening is the investors, the founders, and some of the top talent are basically standing on your shoulders to reach the stars and then getting poached and leaving you holding the bag. And, it is, I guess, within their rights. Maybe, I guess it's within the law. They're doing it enough. Maybe it's the only way some of these big tech companies can acquire because of the antitrust laws and investigations. But it also just seems like really, really aggressive and pretty shady. I don't feel great about it. Now, if I'm
Yeah.
Google, I'd be like the cat that caught the mouse. I'm sure Sundar and the team over there are very happy, and we continue to believe they're very well placed over there. If I was OpenAI, I'd probably be a little frustrated by the whole situation. And if I was the people at Windsurf, the people not the chosen few, I'd be pretty damn pissed. And so it's a very interesting mixed outcome. And I would say it's not great for Silicon Valley. It's hurting the talent pool at Silicon Valley who feel probably that they're gonna get screwed by these AI companies.
I think it's really interesting because it's nearly moved to the next stage, right? So a few of these things that happen, like Meta buying Scale AI, that was primarily around avoiding regulatory scrutiny. A full acquisition would result in this regulatory scrutiny that would slow things down, potentially stop the merger and so on. Like, for example, that's what happened when Adobe tried to acquire Figma, which is why they're now filing for IPO. So they found this interesting backdoor to basically pay off the investors, take a minority stake in the company, get all their best employees. Great.
Now it's becoming the modus operandi. It's becoming the
Yep,
way to do it.
that's right. But now it's even more about the talent, right? This is the same story arc as Meta paying $100 million for the top AI researchers, right? So what Google was really after here were the best people. And so what they basically did is they concentrated their money. They haven't even acquired a stake in Windsurf here. They have acquired a license to the technology, which is really just a way of transferring money back to the initial investors.
Exactly. They're not licensing the technology. It is a bullshit transaction.
That's right. The rest of the money was just to get the people they wanted, to cherry pick the people out of it. And as you said, Chris, the investors always get made whole because they have to sign off on this shit. So it is the lower value employees, the non-rock stars who Google didn't want, they're the ones who got shafted. And like you said, it's left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths, and we'll see how it shakes out. But yes, I think the mechanism of a proper acquisition protects all interested parties, and this shady backdoor weirdness is not really healthy for everyone. And I imagine that when the United States gets a more functional government, they will start closing off these loopholes. But we might be waiting a while for that.
Yeah, and the US is not really great about closing off capital loopholes that are beneficial to capital allocators. Let's put it that way. So I think this is medium to long term really very, very bad for Silicon Valley. The Silicon Valley promise is that if you come, you work hard, you contribute meaningfully to the startup or scale up that you're in, you too could become a millionaire. And just like in our last episode, our last Reacts episode with Shira, I was lamenting about how big tech is becoming more like big oil or big tobacco. This is another example where the value is accruing to the very, very top, and it is no longer being distributed amongst the rest of the employees. And that is another example of how big oil and big tobacco and big pharma work. The execs at the top make all the money, and everyone else are just serfs. This is not a great way to maintain and keep talent, morale, and the Silicon Valley promise. So, yeah, it's another example of this increasingly mercenary approach. I know critics of Silicon Valley have always believed that the whole thing has been mercenary and the whole thing is about tech bros just, benefiting from the misery of others. And I just don't think that's been a fair assessment. But I think it's becoming more fair the way that things are changing in the culture there and the leadership there. So it's a bit of a struggle. Those are our thoughts on the Windsurf deal. What do you think? Is this shady, or is this just plain old capitalism and getting shit done? Drop in the comments and let us know your thoughts.